Bushtales.
Steffen HD, you got a message for the viewers at home?
Yeah, man, we had one hell of a show with Bootsy and Bushtales and the whole family, so we're gonna funk it.
So what song?
He mixed
his own mixes.
Je wekelijkse portie P-Funk bij Radiostad Roosendaal.
KPFA, the history of funk. Ricky Vincent here. Oh, we got a wild one for you. We got European funk. Yes, it's Euros, and they playing that P-Funkish type jams on KPFA.
Yo, 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 P-Funketeers. P-Funketeers of the world unite. It's Funkster's Preview.
P-Funk Lunch Meat. P-Funketeers of the World. P-Funketeers of the World Unite. Welkom bij Radiostad Roosendaal. Vanavond een speciale uitzending. De launch van de nieuwe CD, oftewel album van Steffen MotherFunkin.
And it's coming at you. All the way live. All the way live from P-Haven. A place where Funkster goes to free my mind so my behind can follow. You feel me? Nothing but the funk. Nothing but the funk. Hey, Steffen MotherFunkin. Let's do this.
Meanwhile, back on Planet P, Steffen MotherFunkin continues to funk in the name of the one.
So here we go, KPFA Radio. We're here with Stefan Clausen, a.k.a. Steffen MotherFunkin, one of the main perpetrators of European funk. What's up, man?
Oh, man, I'm truly honored to be on your show, Rick. Yeah, I'm doing great over here. Staying safe and doing that quarantine funk.
Steffen MotherFunkin, you're in Denmark. How'd you get to the funk, all the way to the funk from Denmark, man?
Well, it started back in my teens where I was a DJ in the radio station, and we were three that started, but to share 1 hour, and the two others stopped shortly after, so I had 1 hour, and then it just took off from there. I was playing hip-hop in a program called Who's in the House, and then I started making my own mixes and putting them out on the air, and cut to many years later in 2002, looking at my CD collection and could not really decide to what to pull down from the shelf and listen to, so I started making some P-Funk mixes just to have everything mixed together. But back then, the radio days, I started rapping as well, so I kind of wanted to get back to that as well, so I hooked up with PTFI, and now we have this extended EP called Quarantine Bump that's coming out.
Quarantine Bump. You found the funk because you went for the P, and then you found us out here in the Bay with Zootzilla and PTFI and just the big hump. What is it about the hump? Some people like funky music, and some people got to have that hump. What's going on, man?
Yeah, even back in the rap days, hip-hop days, I was more into West Coast hip-hop than the East Coast. Not that there was anything wrong with the East Coast, but you just had that bottom that came from, especially from the P-Funk. Then you get to hear Zootzilla and PTFI, what these guys do, and it just had that oomph in it. That's really what I dig. I really like that thick bottom of funk that Phil he puts in there, and for me there was no question if anybody should do it should be Phil.
So Steffen MotherFunkin, all around the world for the funk. You got these jams, man. What is the deal with Mr. GoodFunk?
Well, a good friend of mine, we write a lot to each other over Skype and Messenger, and one day he just wrote an uplifting message and calling me Mr. GoodFunk, and that kind of got stuck in my mind. And then one evening, I kind of said, Mr. GoodFunk, yeah, and started kind of chanting between the Mr. GoodFunk, and that's how that really came to be. And then I was lucky to have my friend Mr. Mark Cooper, who everybody knows for his Bootsy's rubber band fame and stuff like that. He wanted to jump in there, and then he did the singing part, and I applaud him, and I'm truly honored that he wanted to participate in this project.
Steffen MotherFunkin here, bringing that P-Funkism out of Denmark, out of Central Europe. What's up with that collaboration you did with Danny Bedrosian?
That was back in 2011. I wanted to give something back to the funk mob for making all these funky things. And then a good friend in the Netherlands called Pascal, he met up with them every time they got there. And then I asked him one day, what if I make a CD with some of my mixes on, sent to you so you can hand them out? After that was done, I actually got word back that when they were in Europe, that listened to the CD I had sent to them. I hooked up with Kim Manning and also Danny Petrosian. Kim, I did few remixes that she didn't release, gave me permission to put up. But Danny, he was very adamant after hearing a remix from his own music that let's go forward, let's make a remix album. So it was a process over, it was like 6-7 years from the get-go to the finished product. But I think it was well worth it, and it was truly a delight to be working with it.
Steffen MotherFunkin. So what's up? When's the album dropping?
The album is dropping August 22nd. It will also be up on various platforms like iTunes, Spotify, and all those entities are called. So if you're not into CDs, you can get it that way when it comes up there.
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing the funk to us all and keeping us up to date with all your online posts. Steffen MotherFunkin here on the History of Funk.
Thank you, man. It's truly a pleasure to be on your show.
Ja, hij is inmiddels aangeschoven, Steffen MotherFunkin. Steffen, hi. Welcome, Steffen, here in P-Funk Lunch Meet.
Hey, brother Hank. Thank you for having me on your show. It means a great deal to me.
And now, let's start to get into the mood of the quarantine bomb. Glad you're here, Steffen, to announce the launch of your new album. Can you tell the listeners about who Steffen is and where his love from P-Funk comes from? And of course, about your experience at and knowledge of the P-Funk University.
Well, it started for me back when I actually was a teenager. First, it was at my communion. I got a stereo and I got my first hip-hop records there with Run DMC and Beastie Boys. And then I started collecting music. After a few years, I saw that I could come into a local radio station. Back then, it was me and 3 others who had applied, and we had to share a segment every Friday from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. So that meant we had 20 minutes each, and we could do whatever we wanted, play whatever music we wanted. Shortly after, the 2 others chose not to be on the radio, so now I had a whole hour of hip-hop from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., which was cool, and that's where my love really started for music, and I got my collection growing with hip-hop albums and playing them on the show. A couple of years later, I met a friend. Already knew that hip hoppers were sampling from records, especially James Brown back then. But my friend, he kind of like opened my eyes to the funk. We started listening to funk tracks at his house. Where he started buying some P-Funk albums, which were not that cheap over here in Denmark, and still it was secondhand. It was not a brand new album. And then I started looking closer at all the covers for the hip-hop albums I had to see what was sampled. And several times you saw George Clinton, Bootsy Collins, and Parliament and Funkadelic being sampled. A couple of years later, I sat at his house. He was talking to his mother in the other room on the phone, and he had put the third Sap album on, and then I Can Make You Dance came on, and I was really taken back by it. And from then on, I haven't really looked back, and kind of like I still listen to rap, but the funk won me over, that's for sure. So that's where it all started from. Cut to 2001, 2002, because my CD collection had grown so much with the funk. It was kind of like when I stood and looked at my CDs and decided and had to decide which album I wanted to hear. It was like a luxury problem. So I sat down and started making P-Funk mixes, mainly just for myself. then I started meeting some guys like Pascal Claude. He's called Bushtales on Facebook, and he urged me to do a longer remix of what I've already done back in 2002. And that got extended then to a 30-minute P-Funk mix, and then I just started mixing from there. For many years, I still have had a wish to kind of like get my own album out. And after hooking up with PTFI and Sutzilla via Facebook, this project came into fruition, and now we're sitting here talking about it.
Did you meet Jones personally? What can you tell us about him? And of course, about the pfunkradio.com, the one who broadcasts 24/7 P-Funk music.
No, I actually haven't met Funkster Jones personally. I learned him again, just like Bushtales, from Facebook, and started hooking up with him here. What fascinated me about this awesome brother was his video wearing various crazy costumes, just like they did back in the 70s, and just promoting the funk out of the funk, and you just see him fully living into it, and see how his passion is, and want to convey that out to everybody else. But I haven't met him personally. I hope to give him a hug one day, that's for sure. P-Funk Radio, if you mean in regards to my mixes being played there, I can actually thank Brenda Robinson, who's the girlfriend of Keith Jackson, who runs P-Funk Radio. She had heard my mixes and liked them, and she had pushed them over for him to listen. And then one day he contacted me on Messenger and asked me if I had done that 30-minute P-Funk mega mix, and I said yeah. And he said if he could play it on the radio. I said yeah, go for it. And then I told him I had made some other mixes, and if he would like those too. And from there it all kind of started, and I have much love for both Larry Funkster Jones, but also for Keith Jackson, Brenda Robinson, and P-Funk Radio for showing me all the love that they have so far.
Turning to the album launch, with what ID did you produce this album? What's its background story?
Well, again, since back from my radio days as a DJ, I always thought it would be cool to kind of like if you could get an album out on the streets. But back then, in the late 80s, early 90s, it was not something you really could do. One was the technology. Another thing was an issue of having money and being backed by a record company so you could make any kind of recordings and put them out. And it's been since the last 15 to 20 years, it has been a more viable solution for many independent musicians that they have a home studio and can produce their music there. And then through the internet, pages like cdbaby.com and others, you can distribute your music yourself. You don't need to be backed up by a large record company with a lot of money behind you to get your music out. And it was like 2 or 3 years ago, a good friend of mine, you all know him, called Gary Mudbone Cooper. He one day he wrote me, and then he said, "What up, Mr. GoodFunk?" And since then, Mr. GoodFunk kind of like stuck in my brain, and for a couple of days it just stayed there, and I started like messing around with well, what could you do for like a refrain or chorus or hook with Mr. GoodFunk, and then I came up with Mr. GoodFunk, yeah. I'm not don't have a perfect singing voice, so excuse that. But that's how I came up with it in my brain. I contacted PTFI, which is also a very, very great friend of mine, him and Sutzilla. And I asked him what it would take for him to help me out doing the music for an extended EP to begin with. And he said, "Do you have something you can send me?" And then I sent him the hook for Mr. GoodFunk that I had played around with for some time. And then he started building the track up, and then I started recording, and then I really started first making the lyrics, because the only thing I had back then was the hook. And then that was how it really got started. So that's why we're sitting here now with an extended EP. It's really just 3 tracks, where one of them is several remixes, but I have hopes along the lines further down the road that a full album will come out from me.
You heard the intro on the CD. That was a very good presentation. If it ain't bumpin', it ain't funkin'. That's a fact. Tell me more about this track, because this track we're gonna hear also in this program. For we have from that number, we have from the track we have 2 versions: a collaboration with Zootzilla and a radio version. My question is: Zootzilla a good friend of yours, and how did he come to help you with this track?
Well, the last track to be made for this album was actually the introduction, and I had mentioned to PTFI that I would love to make an introduction to kind of like get people settled into what they would listen to afterwards. I had some ideas I sparked around with in my head, and 1 or 2 days after I had aired my idea to PTFI, he had actually made that introduction you hear, and it's pretty much along the lines, much of the same that I would have come up with, but I think he did it even better, and I'm glad that he did what he did. And it's an amazing intro, that's for sure. About If It Ain't Bumpin', that was back in 2012. I think it was shortly after I'd hooked up with PTFI and Zootzilla on Facebook, and making a 19-minute mega mix of all their music. I started walking around with an idea in my head, because they call it their genre of the funk electro hypnotic bump music. So I actually started thinking, and then I came up with the hook: "If it ain't bumping, it ain't funking." And I presented that idea to Phil, and told Phil, that who's PTFI, and told him that he and or Zootzilla should make that track, should make a track around that hook. And then PTFI, he wrote me back, well, record that hook for me with your own voice, and then I did, and sent it to him. And then he built up the whole track, as you hear it now. And as soon as Zootzilla, he heard about it, the intro you hear from him is actually him calling PTFI on the phone and laying this message on the voice recorder that if it ain't bum, it ain't funk. The reason for 2 versions is radios normally don't want to play tracks that are extended further than 3.5 to 4 minutes. So that's why you have the radio versions that are the short version for airplay, and for those who want some more of that stanky ass funk, they can play the long versions. So the radio version is basically the same as the long one. It's just Zootzilla is not doing the intro, that is cut out, and another part with the guitar solo is cut out in the radio version. So that's basically the difference between those tracks.
The track MotherFunkin coming through, 2 versions, the main track and the radio version. Are you planning on getting into the top 100 with the version?
Yeah, MotherFunkin coming through. MotherFunkin coming through. That was a track that my friend from back in the day, where that got me listening to funk. He and I had a mutual friend who had a home studio. It was not much, but it would definitely do for what you wanted to do. You could make samples and stuff like that. Then one day, me and my friend, we sat together, and we have to make a track for you, Steffen. And back then, my name were KC. So the track we wrote was called KC Coming Through. And cut to all these several years later, where this album project with PTFI was coming together. I wanted to do that again, but I'm not called KC anymore. I'm called Steffen MotherFunkin. So of course the title had to be changed, so it's MotherFunkin coming through. Also, the lyrics have been changed from the original back from 1994 a little bit here and there to suit the situation that is now in. So that's really how that came together. Again, it's two versions. There's the long version, which is the original, and then there's the radio version for a more commercial kind of, can you say, approach to it for many other radio stations that don't want to use time playing long versions. So again, it's the same version, it's just cut short in the radio version. If it's going to be a top 100, well, I guess we'll have to see. I don't have high expectations of how things will pan out. I would rather just go with the flow and see where it takes me, and then we just take it from there. But it would be cool if one of these tracks on the EP could come on a chart and maybe land high above on a chart. But again, we will have to see what happens there, but it would be cool.
I believe you're the bump in Europe, a trendsetter for dedicated good funky music based on P-Funk. What are your plans for the future?
Well, thank you, Brother Hank. That's very kind of you. If I'm the bump in Europe, there are several others here in Europe as well that are too stanking funky. So for you to give me that praise, that I take close to heart, and I'm very proud to have that label on me if that's the case. But it wouldn't be the bump without the PTFI and his way of making music, where you really had that thick bottom funky bassline bumping funk. So again, electro-hypnotic bump music. I wouldn't be the bump here in Europe without PTFI and how he has produced the music. So if I'm a trendsetter, if I'm dedicated for good funky music, I'm only happy to have that label on me as well. So I will just keep doing what I'm doing. People primarily know me as a remixer, but I definitely would love to plan for a full-scale album, maybe a couple of years down the line. Already have a title for an album just to go there. I won't mention it here. It will have to be a surprise. I already also was working on some ideas, but everything has to fall together. That we have to make a deal with whoever wants to make the music. I guess if I would have to go to anybody, I would go back to PTFI, because again, the way he makes the music is just so appealing to me.
Ending this hour, if the listeners want to buy this album, where can they order it and get their hands on those funky tracks?
Well, since I'm an independent musician, I've put my own money into getting a CD produced of this extended EP. There will be limited copies of the physical CD, and if people want to get their hands on that, then from August 22nd, people can write me a private message either on Facebook's Messenger or on Twitter and mention they will buy this album. I distribute it from my own home, so that's how people can get it. There will be no physical stores where you can go in and buy this album as it is, and when the limited edition of CDs have been sold out, then it would actually only be available as a stream or download, as many people use today. I distribute that part through cdbaby.com, so there you will be able to buy the album. But they also have cooperations with iTunes, Spotify, Tidal, and many other websites that I haven't even heard of where you could buy the music. Amazon.com should also have my music for download, so you can always go there to get that.
Thanks for being my guest, Stefan, and lots of success with the release of this album. I will play the tracks many times here in P-Funk Lunch Meet. Thanks.
You're most welcome, Brother Hank, and it was truly a pleasure for me to come here and be on your show and you doing this interview with me. I just hope that people will enjoy what they're hearing and just remembering you can't spell funk without the fun. So enjoy all.